This week in new knives, we've got brand new Benchmades, one of the best value exclusives we've ever had, and a whole new category of pocket knife. Hey everybody, welcome back to the New Knives Table. I'm Seth for the KnifeCenter, and what better place to start than at the beginning with the all-new Benchmade Mini Bedlam. These things are wild. Coming in at $350 for both of these G10 versions and $450 for the upgraded carbon fiber version, which is sold out as of this filming, which is why it's not on the table. The Mini Bedlam is a new version of something of a Benchmade classic. Despite the name Mini, these are still quite sizable knives. They've got 3.5 inches of blade, S90V steel, and a formidably sized handle. You can see in my full fisted grip here, I've got the full pommel kind of area sticking out, and visually that's even further kind of expanded by this back spacer that sticks out with a striking tip on it. Yeah, hard to believe when you hold this that the original Bedlam was even bigger, because this thing feels anything but mini. Of course, these have Benchmade's axis lock, which is ambidextrous, strong, secure, stable, all those great S words. One interesting little detail I noticed having both of these side by side is that the patterns on the G10 are actually a little different. So this black and brown version has some kind of waviness going on, whereas the all black version has a kind of a lizard scale, almost a jigged bone pattern. Very cool. Both of them add a bit of grip, but you don't need a lot of texture to hold your hand in place on a knife like this with all these ergonomic features for your fingers and the, exaggerated kind of pistol grip or curve to the end of the handle that really locks it into your fist. So this is, I don't know, it's fun to see something wild from Benchmade. Usually they skew a little more utilitarian with their designs. This one is just out there with that dramatic Persian or upswept blade. And yeah, I think it's not gonna be for everyone, but the people that are gonna want to carry this are gonna love this thing. Next up is also a surprise from Spyderco. I had no idea this was coming, but there it was on our new knives page on our website, so we grabbed it for this video. This is the Delica 4, of course, and this is a distributor exclusive. So these are somewhat limited in that it's up to the distributor as to how many are eventually made. But what we have here is 2.9 inches of CruWear blade steel with a black titanium carbonitride finish. We've also got black liners, full liners on this style of the Delica, and carbon fiber scales. So kind of a blacked out but classy version of the Delica. These come in at $262.50. And yeah, ultimately, there's not a whole lot more to say about the Delica. If you've seen one or held one, you know that it's still one of the best kind of everyday carry designs in Spyderco's lineup. It's classic, it's been around, it's proven, it's got enough handle length to fit virtually any hand, but a very precision-oriented blade, nice thin blade stock for efficient slicing, full flat grind. It's got a back lock, which is strong and ambidextrous. And on this version, thanks to the full liners, it also feels kind of extra stable and secure. There's no play at all in this thing. So yeah, really living up, I think, to the premium look of this build. And of course, CruWear steel is, it's one of my favorites, and I think it's one of the most popular sort of modern particle metallurgy tool steels out there. It is tough, holds a good edge, and maybe most importantly, it sharpens up beautifully. So this one's a looker and it's also a user. Okay, next we get to that value that I mentioned. And these have been out of stock for so long that we put them on the new knives table now that they're back, because I'm excited to see these again. I truly do think that even at the asking price of $161.96 as of this video, that this is one of the best value exclusives we've ever had. This is the Hogue K320. It features 3.5 inches of Magna Cut blade steel. We've got Hogue's crossbar lock and these absolutely drop dead beautiful aluminum handles. Yeah, I remember the day that these handle samples first came in when we were putting this exclusive together. Immediately we just knew this was the one. This pattern, it adds a bit of grip. It also gives just a awesome kind of dimension to the handle, and in aluminum it looks especially good. One thing you'll notice about these when you get them in hand, and I don't know if this is true of all the K320s or just these aluminum ones, but the handle actually has a bit of taper to it as you get towards the end here, which always, I think, improves the balance of a knife, and also kind of that feel in hand. You know, it helps minimize the kind of volume of space that the pocket clip takes up, so that pocket clip does not become an ergonomic bother. Still plenty fist filling for a solid grip, and of course you've got that forward finger choil if you need to choke up on that blade for more precision. The drop points are still gone, but the tantos are here for now. So if you want a little bit more toughness that the tanto tip provides, this is the knife for you. And yeah, I mean, Hogue's quality, made in the USA, Magna Cut steel, aluminum handles, these just feel incredible. I can't think of a knife I'd rather spend $162 on. Okay, now we're getting into some cool kind of pickups from Blade Show Texas. The first of which is this Model 1 flipper from American Bladeworks. So talking about American-made value, similar to that Hogue, American Bladeworks does kind of hit on the American-made value proposition. Now these come in at $349, and for that you get a Magna Cut blade and titanium handles. And even at that higher price point though, I do think American Bladeworks is kind of hitting on the same high value formula that Hogue also delivers. Yes, it is more expensive, but American Bladeworks is a much, much smaller company, and for your money, you're getting more premium materials and a little bit more attention to detail. You know, you've got the titanium handles, you've got a milled pocket clip, back spacer to match. You've also got custom in-house made pivot hardware, and a really cool kind of machined finish to this blade here. You can see the CNC marks from the mill as it's gone over. So each one of these blades is ground side to side and finished by hand. A lot of time and attention went into these. So even though the price is at that $350 mark, I think for essentially a custom knife, they're a pretty good value. This is actually the first Model 1 I've seen that features both thumb studs and a flipper, which is cool. I don't know if that's the new standard or just kind of a one-off batch variant in this case, but either way, the detent is quite firm and quite precise, so it snaps open, no problem. These have ball bearings. Yep, I can see them in there. So super smooth. Yeah, every one of these American Bladeworks knives I handle is better and better, which means this is the best one yet. Next up is a knife I am excited to get my hands on, but also a little unhappy to be instantly putting my fingerprints on, and that is this very fancy custom ProTech Cambria 2. This comes in at $790, but being at that custom class, what we have here is a hand ground by Mike Erie mirror finished blade. As you can see, we've got compound grinds there. I believe that's a hollow here at the heel and a flat towards the tip. You've also got stainless steel handles that have been blasted and brushed for that really bright finish, and maple burl inlays with a mosaic button. So packed with details here, definitely delivering on that custom class. The Cambria 2, this is the first time I've handled one, and I am really liking the changes they've made since the Cambria 1. Interestingly, the Cambria 1 was originally ProTech's first manual button lock flipper. Everybody thinks of the Malibu when you think ProTech button lock flippers, but the Cambria actually came first. sort of tested the waters there. And I think the reason it wasn't such a big hit is because the original had a really dramatic pistol grip to the handle, whereas this one is just more streamlined, a little more straightened out, and as a result, I think it works much better for more people. In fact, if you were to ask me today which I would rather have, I would definitely be picking a Cambria over the Malibu, just for my own personal tastes. I really like the graceful look of this, the drop point blade. I'm probably gonna wait for one of the production, more affordable versions to come in, but if I had the money and I really liked the look of this, I would not hesitate to get this because it's a unique variant that will not be made again. Like the Malibu, it has incredible flipping action, just liquid smooth on the drop, crisp and satisfying to open. And I'm just noticing that the handles have been weight relieved on the insides too. So it's more substantial than an aluminum handle, but you've still got pretty good balance here thanks to that kind of weight relieving on the inside. Deep carry clip, as you can see, very, very nice. Okay, we're gonna veer on over to fixed blades just for a minute to talk about the last of the Blade Show Texas pickups we had. And that's gonna be this Minnow from Gary Creely. The Minnow is a shrunken version of his signature Mako design. And this has about 2.1 inches of blade. It's made from MagnaCut, made in the USA. And it comes with a pocket sheath. Well, it's set up for pocket carry right out of the box with this ulti clip, but also includes a little loop here that you can pin on if you want to do scout carry. This knife, though, I think even more than the Mako, which was kind of his version of a pocket fixed blade, the Minnow even more has pocket carry as its kind of first design element. It's way shorter. It's, geez, I mean, the open length of the Minnow is smaller than the closed length of the Benchmade Mini Bedlam. Shows just how much mini means in the case of the Bedlam. But yeah, I think for people who have pocket space at a premium, the Minnow is going to work really nicely as a fixed blade option. And one of the cool things about this is the handles here. So they still have a good bit of width, which allows you to have a three-fingered grip that still feels very confident. You know, there's still plenty of volume for your hand to close around. So no matter how you hold this thing, it kind of stays in place. I would not describe this as a bushcraft knife, but I actually like some of these bushcraft grips. Like, I think it works great in a reverse grip. If it were me, I would add a lanyard to this. There's a hole to accommodate that, but you know, a little extra something for the pinky would not go missing. And but even if not, I think there's still, thanks to those handle scale shape, plenty to hold on to here. One other thing to note about the handles is these are carbon fiber 3D printed. How cool is that? I didn't even know you could do that, but actually I talked to Gary Creely about it, and he is really liking what he's able to achieve with that material and that process. You know, it has a lot of the material kind of benefits to carbon fiber in that it's stronger, more resistant to temperature changes, but being 3D printed, he can really dial in the contour, the exact shape he wants, and get it just right without having to go through batches and batches of milled production scales. So yeah, the result here I think is pretty cool, and the fact that you can get something from Creely's shop at $204 in MagnaCut with the leather sheath. Yeah, pretty good value, I'd say. Now we're getting to that whole new category I mentioned at the top here with a brand new brand. We are welcoming Remette knives. Or is it Remette?
Remette.
Remette? It's so new, we don't even know. Maybe somebody in the comments can correct us so we can be sure to say it right next time. Either way, they are new. Let's give a warm KnifeCenter welcome to the Gravity Knife. That's right, this is the Swordfish OTF. and it is a new, innovative gravity knife. These come in at $283. They've got M390 steel, titanium handles, titanium pocket clip, and this really cool copper carbon fiber inlay. What is a gravity knife, you might ask? Well, it is a knife that is deployed via gravity. As you can see by the way I'm kind of inverting and letting gravity control the motion of this blade, that is the only thing that causes the blade to come out or retract. To actuate it, you just push up on this switch, kind of like a spring-loaded OTF. But unless I'm holding it or kind of flinging it out with force, that blade stays closed until gravity does the work. Pretty cool, pretty cool. These were made famous, or should I say infamous, by sort of like a German paratrooper knife design. You know, if you look it up, you can see the history of all that. But it does seem to be a type of knife that is kind of coming back into style, which is interesting. Everything old is new again, right? So it's fun to see Remette's take on the gravity knife. The thing that they're doing that I've never seen before is the way that the mechanism kind of butterflies open to allow the blade to come out and to lock behind the blade in the open position. Very cool, very clean. You know, you get the advantages of an OTF in that it's a completely kind of enclosed or almost completely enclosed package in your pocket. It's, you know, unless you push that switch, it's not gonna deploy in your pocket. It's closed and it's silent. But yeah, out the front, manual. The only springs involved are the ones actuating the sort of butterfly mechanism. So this is not an automatic knife, but it is an OTF. Very cool.
What a shame it's not a drop point.
And that's right. Clip. Missed a trick there, Remette. Maybe next time. Well, you know, if you think about it, it is a drop point.
Dropping point?
It's a dropping point. Gravity knives are not all that Remette does. They also make conventional titanium frame lock flippers like this one. This is the Kestrel, and it has 3.2 inches of S35 VN blade steel, titanium handles, as I said, and the same kind of copper foil carbon fiber inlays here. Very nice work. This is, I would say it's up to the standard of, you know, your Wies or your high-end QSPs. It's definitely got the same tolerances and attention to detail and materials going on. So at the price of $249, I'd say it's very much competitive with those knives. One thing I like, well, a couple things I like on this. One, the custom thumb studs. Usually custom thumb studs kind of sacrifice a little bit of just usability to kind of maintain the cool flowing shape that they have. But in this case, these custom thumb studs actually contain just a regular round thumb stud interface, if that makes sense. So I had no problem whatsoever just using them like any other thumb stud. Very comfortable to use. Of course, it has a flipper as well, which works great. The other thing I really like on this knife is how aggressively thin this hollow grind is. If you want a super slicer, this is going to deliver. It's super thin behind the edge and it stays thin very far up the grind panel. So yeah, this is just, it's going to make cardboard spring apart in front of it. Next is a new version of a Kizer that I happen to quite like. This is the Mini Momo, designed by Vladimir Legachev, and the inspiration behind it was to deliver a kind of chef's knife usability and ergonomics in a folding package. And I think you can see how he's achieved that here. The way that the edge is dropped below the level of the handle and curves up to meet the dropped spine. You've got elements of a chef's knife, but in one that folds up. Very nicely done, and I would say definitely achieves what it sets out to do. Obviously this is a front flipper. It works quite well. You've got plenty of leverage to go off. And yeah, easy to get all of that edge down on a cutting board. Kind of feels very natural in a pinch grip. The blade stock is appropriately thin. You know, it's not as thin as an actual chef's knife, but it is thin for a folder, and I think it'll work quite well. This version is, I think, looking really, really nice with the very, very reflective but black DLC finish. I love the finish that Kizer does with their black DLC these days. It isn't a paint-like black. You can still see the metallic kind of subsurface going on. Almost gives it like a bronze look. It's really, really nice. I hope the camera is picking it up. And to go with all that black, you've got nicely finished titanium pocket clip, backspacer, liners, and then this pop of color from these camo carbon handles. Pretty sweet look. I don't know, I'd call it stealthy, but you can't ignore the vibrant colors on that camo carbon.
Stealthy in a nightclub kind of way.
Yeah, there we go. Next is a new one from Mechforce. This is made in collaboration with Peter Carey. It's called the Roadster, and it comes in at either $420 for this carbon fiber version and a couple other carbon fiber versions, or $410 if you want Ivory G10. So Mechforce seems to be making a name for themselves with these custom collaborations, kind of bringing flagship custom designs to a small batch production, release, but with very custom-like attention to detail. And by that I mean, the way they're finished and put together, it feels more elevated than your typical production knife. For example, this has a hand-finished satin grind. It looks beautiful. It's the kind of thing you would see on a custom. The action is phenomenal. Yeah, almost feels like you have extra leverage behind that flipper tab. It just kicks the blade open. Very satisfying. Got some semi-custom hardware there. A couple of finishes going on with a blasted and then a satin finish over the top. Nice integrated pocket clip that has hidden hardware. Little details that just are the extra, that little step beyond your typical production knife to sort of justify that higher price. And if you're a fan of Peter Carey and can't find or can't afford one of his full customs, and let's face it, that's most fans of Peter Carey, this is a really cool way to kind of experience his knives. I don't think I've said the blade steel on this, which is M390. And as I'm sure you probably don't even need me to say, the handles are titanium with these sculpted carbon fiber inlays. Very nicely done, and I like the closed profile of this design too. Kind of torpedo-like, just nice and compact. Definitely going to be a good pocket companion. But the next knife on the table is anything but a polite pocket companion, because this is the Reate Terminator-TX228. This is the latest in their kind of T1000, T6000 series, and it is a massive, massive folding knife. Absolutely monumental even. Just look at that kind of top-down profile. The thickness of this thing, it might even be hard to sort of understand because the proportions overall are just so big, but I mean, let's compare it to kind of a reference here in the Inkosi there. It's like two Inkosis stacked on top of each other. That's how massive this thing is. It's got equally massive blade stock. This is M390, and it's got a whole lot of kind of venting and I'd be tempted to call it weight relief cuts in it, but it does not feel like it has saved any weight, even though it's
rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic there.
Yeah, definitely. This has some gravity to it. Absolutely. So what makes these so special, other than the sheer size, is the secondary locking mechanism, which I think is intentionally over-engineered. This thing is it commits to its ridiculousness, and that's probably why these have been so successful. Right here, we've got 2 hardened steel pins. Let me show you that again. You can push in on them, and then it locks the blade in place. Even if I have the frame lock disengaged, I cannot close that blade. To disengage the lock, you sort of use this hidden feature here. You push this part forward, it pushes those pins apart, and then you can let that blade swing closed. The deployment action is very satisfying. You know, it's got so much mass to it, it kind of snaps your wrist as you flick it. And just look at this thing. You know, just by looking at it already, if this is for you. The price, though, may be a limiting factor for some people because this all black version is $590, and the other, just kind of standard stonewashed version with the gray titanium, is $547. It is definitely a lot to ask, but of all knives in that price point, this delivers something special. There's truly nothing else quite like it, and it will definitely stand out in your collection. I just hope Reate keeps making new versions of this thing, because even though it's definitely not for me, I love that they just followed through on it. What a ridiculous and ridiculously cool idea.
It's like a pet rhinoceros. I don't want one, but I respect it.
Yeah. Pet rhinoceros. Let's go with that. Okay, and to represent something of a huge restock on the Chris Reeve Inkosi, we have brought a plain Jane version out. Thomas and I were talking before the shoot, and we couldn't remember the last plain Jane Sebenza or Inkosi we've seen on the channel, so there you go. Although, come to think of it, this might not quite technically be a plain Jane because this features the glass blasted handles, which...
I'm calling it close enough.
It'll do. I think the glass blast has been so popular, it may even be the new normal finish. I don't know, you can spec it either way, but the glass blast doesn't have quite the same amount of chalky or kind of like textured finish as their usual blast. It also doesn't pick up snail trails or marks on it as fast, so I know some people prefer it for that reason. So, the Inkosi, if you haven't seen one before, it is like Sebenza, but different, right? In fact, the Inkosi sort of started its life as the Sebenza 25. A little bit of knife history for you here, but you know, the number after the Sebenza is the number of years since the original one. So the Sebenza 21 was 21 years after the original. The Sebenza 25 would have been 25 years. And they did a radical redesign. It looked pretty much exactly like this. And people thought it was too different. They said, this is a whole different knife. And after a couple years, I believe Chris Reeve agreed and said, you know what, it is a different knife, but it's a good knife. And so we're gonna keep it, but we're gonna make it the Inkosi. And I, for one, am glad they've kept it in the lineup. I do agree that it is different than a Sebenza. It's more than just the fact that it has these extra little finger grooves here. It does affect the ergonomics, but not hugely. You feel a little more locked in. You know, it may work a little better for some finger sizes than others. It certainly has never bothered me. Perhaps the more substantial change from the Sebenza is the type of grind here. So the Inkosi features, what do they call it? Like an ultra hollow grind. Essentially, it is technically a hollow grind, but it is very, very close to a flat grind, which gives you significantly more strength behind the edge. Overall, this makes the Inkosi a sort of harder use knife. It's made to be pushed even harder than a Sebenza. So if you like a Sebenza but wish it was a little tougher, the Inkosi is the choice for you. And this moment now is a great time to buy one because, yeah, like I said, we have virtually every variant in stock now. We've got smalls, larges, Tansos, drop point. This is a drop point. We've even got, do we still have any of the Insingos? Yep, we still got some Insingos. We've got them with micarta inlays, or plain Jane as you see here. One other cool thing about the Inkosi is it comes with double-sided thumb studs as standard, which is nice. I just always appreciate the symmetry. Flicks open nicely. You've got the ceramic ball kind of interface that works as both the detent and the lock bar interface. Super hard, super stable. Yeah, great. Goes to show Chris Reeve is still innovating, even though they are still iterating on designs that they launched the brand with. Okay, we're down to our slip joint and slip joint adjacent section of the table. Let's talk about these new Jack Wolves. I'm gonna grab them both here. These dropped, I wanna say on Friday, but we still have a handful of these left. One version sold out basically immediately, but if you like this design, you can still get one. So this is the Diamondback. They come in at $349 and they feature S90V steel. Now, Jack Wolf lately has been kind of staggering their releases. So they'll do one slip joint, one locking knife, one slip joint, one locking knife. This is a locking release. So it's got the milled titanium pocket clip with the hidden hardware, the frame lock. You could call it a bolster lock if you wanted to, because it is part of the bolster, I suppose. But the way this is built, that titanium piece is, part of the frame. It's a frame lock that just happens to look like a bolster. These are easy to front flip, as you can see. I just did, no problem. Even with that tiny little tab there, the detent is so nicely tuned. Yeah, I haven't failed it yet. The Wharncliffe blade is really nicely executed. S90V, as I said, nice hollow grind here for superior slicing performance. And I like just a hint of a negative angle. It very much calls back to the deep slip joint kind of heritage that Jack Wolf owes so much of their design language to. A lot of traditional Wharncliffe blades will have that same kind of slight negative angle to them. It makes it feel kind of especially aggressive as you're slicing through things. I really appreciate it, at least, and yeah, cool to see it expressed here on a modern locking folder. So if you want to see what makes slip joint inspired designs like this so special, but you want all of the advantages that a modern locking knife gets you, pocket clip, the safety of a lock, etc. I really like recommending Jack Wolves for that. They look great, they work great, and they're pretty collectible too. Each version is only made this way the one time. So if you see one you connect with, like this Purple Haze Fat Carbon or this Linen micarta here, grab one before they're gone. Okay, and some true slip joints now. We have new versions of the the Baby Butterbean. Got to get that alliteration in there. The Baby Butterbean. I like the Baby Butterbean. It is quite small. The main blade, well, it's only 2.75 inches closed. So that's small enough to fit in your watch pocket, your fifth pocket, what have you. What I really like about the Butterbean, though, is the fact that the tangs are kind of protected when it's closed. So this pattern is often called a canoe pattern. If you look at the handle, it's got the symmetry and the sort of little peaks on either end like a canoe. You see it now?
Like a Butterbean.
And what that gets you is a totally smooth presentation in pocket. So a lot of old slip joints will have the tangs of the blades kind of sticking up out of the handle when closed. This hides that perfectly. Let's get it open here. Ooh, good strong spring on this. So we've got a main spear point blade with a nice long pull. Love the look of a long pull. And then another spear point. Little baby spear point. Nice two-blade pattern here. One thing I like is it's using a single spring, so it doesn't have kind of the excess thickness of some other multi-blade slip joints, but you still get that nice secondary blade. Very, very thin. Great to have as a backup. You keep your main blade for day-to-day tasks, and then that secondary blade for when you really need that ultimate edge, sharpness. So these come in a bunch of different flavors, if you will. This right here is the banana bone. I guess it's just me calling it banana bone. It is the smooth yellow bone. I think it looks pretty delicious though.
Lemon bone.
Yeah, why not? So we've got this blue pearl kieranite. There's a Patriot kieranite, a couple more as well. They're all gonna come in right around $74. Made in the USA, of course, like all case knives. Very nice, you know, as a secondary slip joint to keep in a fifth pocket, or, you know, heck, let's be honest with ourselves, this would do about 90% of the cutting I needed to do day to day. There is still a case to be made for carrying a traditional slip joint.
Whatever the case may be.
Well, folks, that is it for this week's edition of New Knives of the Week. We will be back next week with all the even newer knives that have just hit our shelves. If you want to see everything that's for sale, click the link in the descriptions. And don't forget about our knife rewards program as well. We also now have a new Sezzle payment option, which allows you to split that payment up into 4 easier to pay installments. And with that, I've been Seth V for the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera, and we will see you soon.